And there's supposed to be a chest here with a key.
Yeah.
There ain't no chest here with a key.
So this isn't that one. Oh, they took that out. Okay. What is going on, everybody? It's Lucky Fan Gaming here, and welcome back to Conan Exiles. And man, it has been a while since we were on this game. But recently, the fellas and me, we were talking about a game we wanted to play. We all wanted to play something building, something kind of grindy, but we didn't want to play Ark. We had kind of gotten burned out on Ark because the last time we tried playing Ark, we had some problems, that being that we all work or go to school, and every time we logged off and came back, our base had been wiped. This happened 6 times. On 6 different occasions, we would build back up and come back, and our base had been wiped. And so, after a little burnout, the fellas and me were like, okay, well, what do we want to play? Well, it was actually my brother Skits who was like, hey man, let's play Conan. And we were like, alright, cool. I mean, we hadn't played Conan in a while, but we had heard that there was a lot of, there had been a lot of changes, a lot of updates, and we wanted to check out what all that was about. So, we did. And here we are. We are back in Conan. Now, my brother Skits and me, we were actually running the War Maker dungeon. We decided that he had never done it before, so I was showing him what we needed, that, and he wanted a special sword, because that's what he does. He likes to go and find and collect swords, and lately he's been collecting the thralls. He wants to get one of every named thrall, so I was like, do you, man. But all that being said, guys, I wanted to talk today about the changes to Conan. And Conan has been making very wide steps, very impactful DLCs, very impactful stuff. Within, really, especially within the last year or so, they've been doing a lot of large movements and changing a lot of things up. I think in an attempt to kind of either save or revive the game a little bit. And so today I want to talk about, can they do that, or is it too little too late? So without further ado, let's talk about that. So one thing I want to discuss real quick is let's run through the history of Conan Exiles for a brief moment. Conan Exiles was released in 2018. For us console players, I think it had been out a little longer for PC players, but I'm not entirely sure. I only really heard about it when it came out on PS4, and I didn't even really play it back then. I wouldn't play it for like another year. So we got Conan Exiles back in 2018, and it was, at the time, games like it were actually fairly popular. We had games like Rust, Ark Survival, and Conan Exiles was just another addition to this, but it would be, I would find this one to be fairly unique. While each of these types of games, these being kind of almost Minecraft style PvP games, ones that were not procedurally generated, they had a preset map, but ones that would kind of have more like grindy and PvP nature to it. And so the maps were not procedurally generated. They were designed to be, for you to go and find a resource at a specific place, and they took the chance out in exchange for the PvP aspect to be more upfront. And I kind of like that. Well, with the exception of Rust. I think Rust is procedurally generated. But that being said, Conan Exiles and Ark were somewhat similar, with having companions. Ark, obviously, its companions were dinosaurs. In this game, it was thralls, and that would go with you and fight with you, and so on and so forth. And at the time, these games were fairly popular. Building, PvPing, it could satisfy everybody's needs. The need to, if you wanted to fight, great, you had a PvP aspect to the game. You wanted to build, great, you had a building aspect to the game, and it just met everything that a player could really want. If you had a creative knack but you wanted some PvP, you had it. If you had more of a PvP knack but you also want to be a little creative, it had something for everybody. Especially if you had a group, you had your guy that was a little more creative, a little more building. You had it. If you had a guy who was a little more PvP, you had it. And this is how my groups have usually gone. I usually play with guys that are far more PvP than I am. I'm more of the base building guy. I like to build the bases. I like to build the castles, so on and so forth. Which has always been fun, and I loved it. Conan Exiles, I wouldn't try Conan Exiles for like a year, but when I did, I fell in love with it. But all that being said, so this is where Conan Exiles fell in. Unfortunately, in my opinion, Conan Exiles, I think Conan Exiles actually kind of came in nearing the end of this general trend. Well, maybe not near the end. I think it came about halfway through this general trend that games had taken. Rust, Ark, so on and so forth. By 2018, Rust had been out for a little while, and Ark had also been out for a little while, and Conan came in a little late. But that's not really a problem. We can discuss, time frames and all that later in the video. Conan Exiles just started off with just the southern desert. This would be the only portion of the map that was available. Later, they would add in the frozen north, which included the fertile highlands, and of course the frozen north. And I believe after that we got the jungle and swamp update, which would add the jungle and the swamp. And then, of course, lastly, we got the volcano. And for a long time, almost 3 years, this is all that Conan would add. There would be rumors of adding another portion to the only map we had at the time, which was the Exiled Lands, but it never came. It would never come to fruition. We only had what we had for several years. That being said, honestly, the game kind of started to lose some steam. Of course, the game style, this is where I want to talk about timelines and everything. The game style had actually already kind of started to falter. It was fun for a little while, but I think a lot of bugs started to kill the game style, particularly involving Ark, meshing, which was common on, I think, all the games like it. Rust, Gen Z, all of the other ones. They all had a similar problem, and that was meshing into the map. When you were creating a map that was designed to have, all these fantastic things meshing, players did what players do. Unfortunately, mostly cheaters, and a lot of cheaters found these kind of games easy to cheat on, because they were almost somewhat indie games at the start. This was a completely new section of gaming that had not been tried yet. Minecraft with PvP is kind of what I call it. So unfortunately, after a little bit, the game had started to lose steam, which was really harmful to Conan Exiles, in my opinion, because Conan Exiles wasn't exactly at the top of the list to begin with. If you looked up Conan Exiles on YouTube, at the time, and still to this day, there's really not that many Conan Exile YouTubers. There's good ones like Whack and Firespark, but they, there wasn't a whole lot of exposure for the game, and I don't know whether they just kind of gave up on the game, which I don't think Funcom, the creators of Conan Exiles, did, because they would continue to release DLCs for the game. So, and that's one thing that they consistently did. They consistently added DLCs, but they were all very PvE based or roleplay based, and I feel like Conan Exiles has always been a big kind of roleplay game. I think it's always been more roleplay PvE than it was anything else. And of course, we had, like look what we're doing right now, Skits running a dungeon. And this is one of the things that made it fun, but this is also one of the things that I think a lot of people didn't get turned on to it as much as they could have. And like I said, really, I feel like it came down to the fact that at the end of the day, it just never got a lot of exposure, which of course is a problem for any game. You always need exposure, and I feel like it just didn't have the exposure that it needed. That all being said, the exposure wouldn't really ever come because they had a problem, and that was they weren't really. I would say they definitely were not releasing. And I'm not the only one that says this. There's a lot of people who I've talked to on this game who say the same thing. It never got the attention it needed because they never they never added anything. There was not a whole lot of additions. While Ark sat in the background. Well, not in the background, really at the forefront, and continued to make DLCs. They added new maps, they added new animals, they added all these amazing things, and kept it. There was always anticipation. Conan Exiles just didn't have the same anticipation. Nobody they didn't give anybody anything to look forward to. And while I would say out of all the games, Rust, Conan, Gen Z, all of these, while they all had while they all were far less optimized in my opinion than Conan was, I think Conan has been the best game as far as they really have always knocked meshing out of the game. Like it's been very hard to mesh on Conan Exiles, but unfortunately for players, that's just not enough. Players unfortunately would rather see more content than better optimization. That's just a fact. People will whine and cry about optimization day in and day out, all day, every day, but at the end of the day, they would rather see extra content than better optimization. And unfortunately, Conan Exiles continued to add fantastic amounts of optimization, but never a lot of content. The only content we got was DLC packs, which just added more to the roleplay games, like Debaucheries of Derketo, so on and so forth, which really only ever, like I said, added to the roleplay portion of the game. And in recent times, within the last year or so, Conan Exiles finally started to add a lot of DLCs. They started changing the content up a little bit, making things a little harder, a little more challenging, while taking away some of the more challenging things to make things a little more fair for everybody. And whether you agree with it or not, this is what they've done. They've started to mix things up a bit. And for any game, that's a good thing. You want to mix things up. But unfortunately, in my opinion, I think it's come a day late and a dollar short. It's too little, too late for Conan Exiles. The genre has honestly started to die. We can talk about Conan, we can talk about Rust another day. I mean, Ark. We can talk about Ark another day. But it is my opinion. It is the opinion of a small YouTuber that the genre has actually is seen better days for sure. Ark is not played as much. Rust is not played as much. And Conan, of course, is not played as much. Evidenced by the fact that despite the multiple people who I have talked to in YouTube comments and whatnot, despite their denial, Conan is and has been a dying game. Evident by the fact that they, within the last couple of months, have removed official servers. I believe almost half of the official servers were removed for this game. So and they continue to try and mix things up. They continue to try to make things more interesting. But will that revive the game? Well, I mean, that's debatable, but I honestly don't think so. Like I said, the game genre has honestly seen better days, and whether it will come back or not, I don't know. We have Arc 2, which is being released, but there's a lot of people who are already having negative thoughts about that game, mostly because Wildcard is going to be changing things pretty wildly. They're not going to make it, and they're making pretty negative decisions. But we could talk, like I said, we could talk about Arc another day. So with all these changes, will Conan come back? In my opinion, no. I'm playing it because I've played Conan before, but I just don't think their changes are enough to bring in new players. And unfortunately, they're making a lot of wide changes, like making fish harder to grind. That one kind of got on my nerves. They made fish hard to grind, and therefore made oil harder to get, just as they nerfed all the thralls and made it to where thralls don't make things cheaper anymore, which unfortunately I feel like was a very, very negative choice on their part. On one hand, they made some things less grindy by making things like handles and stuff less grindy. For example, in older Conan days, you would need multiple different kinds of handles in order to make certain kinds of weapons. You no longer have to do that, but those kinds of small changes don't fix the fact that they made an already annoying part of the game even more annoying, and that is particularly the grinding of fish. It was already a pain in the butt to do fish traps and everything, and now it's an even bigger pain in the butt because now you have to fill them up with bugs and stuff, which is an annoyance. And so they made the game a little more grindy on that front, which, in my opinion, turned off a lot of their already set players. Making a game more grindy like that is not going to bring in any extra players. It's not going to help you out at all. And it's my concern that that is only turned away more players than it's going to bring in. And that is just a continuation of the problem. And like I said, once you start removing official servers, again, that's just only going to turn away more of your player base. A lot more of your player base is just going to say, man, this game's dying, I'm out. And when there's less people playing, there's less new players coming in. When there's less new players coming in, the more the game dies. And unfortunately, that just seems to be how it is for Conan. Even though they've released the Isles of Sipta, a brand new map, and added horses and all these other things, I just feel like it's too late for Conan. Conan is unfortunately a dying game. And I'm enjoying it while I can, because I feel like, even though I really do enjoy this game, I'm also not blind to the reality that the game is likely to not come back. I feel like they're just going to continue to shut down official servers until the game is just no more and only run on private servers. In fact, I've heard that this is the plan for Arc as well, and since Arc was always more wildly popular than Conan Exiles ever was, yeah, I think it's safe to say that it's probably over for Conan. The writing is basically on the wall for this game. So, all that being said, guys, I hate to give you this bad news. I feel like this is a more negative video, but it is the video that I wanted to make, and I just want to talk to you guys about it. And if you've never tried Conan, you definitely should. It's actually a pretty fun game, but it's also kind of a dying game. So take that how you will. But I hope you all enjoyed, and possibly more Conan Exiles content to come, even though, like I said, I think it's dying. I still do enjoy the game, and I would love to continue to make more content out of it. I'd love to tell you guys some of the stories that have come out of this game, something to possibly look at in the future. And if you like the video, think about subscribing, and I will see you all in another time and dimension, whenever or wherever that may be. Till then, peace out.
Yeah, I'd have to say that Beastmaster Tamos is a lot tankier than
And there's also cap level though.
what are we doing for?